under control completely, and I never would have known.
No, it was like a serious panic mode. Sweet. I have no idea what episode number is this. Does somebody remember other than me?
I want to say it is 89.
Nope.
90.
Short.
90.
Yes.
90 is nice and round. See, because it's N for 9 and then round because it's a 0. Also, it's divisible by 2. So
Okay, I mean, that's a good, even numbers are good, I guess.
yeah. Hey, it's We Were Gamers. It's a podcast.
Yeah.
It's a podcast so that we're going to have to live on the air semi-adjust our tagline, JJ.
Yeah, because normally I would say that this is a podcast where you, Andrew, and I, JJ, talk to each other since we used to talk to each other more and we don't anymore. But
Which is
now,
still accurate.
That part is also true, but we're expanding the frequent speakers to include good friend and hopeful frequent contributor Michael here.
Hey guys.
Yeah. Hi. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I was kind of sad that you came up with such a great nickname for last episode, which was The New Hotness, which we then can't use for your intro to the stable crew.
That's okay. It'll just give people a reason to go back and listen to last week's to know what I was talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, good enough. Oh, well, okay, so it's We Were Gamers. We Were Gamers is always about kind of the things we miss and the things we look forward to in a sense that we don't get to play as many games as we used to. So we I think one of the benefits, one of the things I'm really excited about of having Michael on this show, JJ, is that sometimes you and I get mired in RPGs, and we really, I don't mind talking about news stories and things like that, but our gameplay experience gets slowed down to the pace of life because we don't do this as a job. So,
Totally.
A plus segue. Tell me about some Xenoblade Chronicles.
As we alluded to several episodes ago now, with other good friend of the show, Ryan, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a really long game. By the count on my save file, which is mostly accurate, I have not run into that issue where it keeps counting when I close it, because I have been judiciously closing it to keep that number somewhat accurate. I think I have played
that they haven't fixed that.
Well, they've put out a couple of other really great patches, actually. I can talk about that in a second. But the playtime is like around 70 hours now. And I'm in chapter... I believe I just finished chapter 7 and entering chapter 8 of what I think is 10. So that's 70 hours in. And I haven't even done close to everything that is available to me at this time. Like, I could easily just go, blow off the main quest for 30 hours and come back.
So you could be at 100 hours by chapter 8.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much just side content if you want that.
Both of you are Xenoblade 1 aficionados. Was this the same way in that game, or is this just so much more expansive thanks to the Switch cart versus being on a DVD?
I think Michael may have played Xenoblade 1 more recently than me. I know there are a lot of side quests in Xenoblade 1, but I feel like at some point a lot of them are just go here, kill 5 of this, or go there
the good old WoW quest
and collect 8 weird little bugs or something.
Get a pelt.
Yeah, there is a lot of that, but I feel like at the same time you can only do so much, because the way that they tend to gate the side quests, and this isn't different from many RPGs, you get a whole big bunch of them whenever you go to a new town, right? There are all the people that you meet, and every one of them has something for you to do. So it's a little bit limited in that there are only so many people with so many things for you to do. So you can go off on a tangent for a while, but you're going to run out of things to do eventually, and it's going to pull you back to the main story. Now, you could save all of those for the end and go off on one giant tangent for hours on end. But if you do them as you go along, I feel like it's not a huge pull away from the story.
I also feel like at certain points in the story, you can go back to the older towns, since they let you fast travel kind of wherever you want in that game at certain points. You can go back to the older towns, and there will be new stuff there to fight some of the higher level enemies in those areas as those become where the game thinks you would be in. Like, you know, if you get to a certain point in the story progression, the first town will now have a quest to fight what were the super high level enemies in that area, except now they're level 50 like you are or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but they don't like tell you about that or anything. If you just happen to be back there, you would find out.
Yeah, that's really cool. They definitely reward the exploration in these games.
Yeah. So, and Xenoblade 2 at least has done those kinds of quests are now the like kill X monsters of a certain name or whatever kinds of quests are relegated to skill points on your various blades trees. So like, you know, your blades have like skill point trees where you can upgrade their abilities to do more damage or help you out in passively or other various things. And it's like if you collect 50 mineral nodes or whatever, then you get an upgrade to the mineral collecting ability that one has. Or if you kill 7 of these specific named wolves, then you get an upgrade to do 10% more damage for this ability or whatever. And they tell you there, and you can just like go search through the tree and see, okay, the next one up from this, which I have to get, is I have to kill 5 of these. So it's like you have a quest, but they don't really give you a quest for that. It's just there for something if you want to do it, right?
That's fantastic. You never have to chase the busy work. It's always there for you if you want to do more.
And in a lot of cases, you can see in advance. So like if you click like 2 nodes deeper into the tree, even though you can't work on that one yet, you can see, oh, I'm going to have to go to this place and kill some enemies or whatever.
Does it have to be after that node is active? Can you bank them early and it unlocks as soon as you have the ability to?
So no. Well, the nodes where it lets you do that tell you. Okay. So in some of the cases, it's like you have to travel 5,000 steps. Well, those ones say if like it'll say previous instances count towards total or something like that.
Got it.
And in those cases, yes, you know, your walking that you've already done counts. Or like, you know, cook 800 times. Well, the previous cooking you did counts, right?
Yeah.
So, but the ones where you have to kill monsters specifically, no, you need to do those once the node becomes active. But at least you will know where to go after you finish this one, right?
And it has kind of a broad base of things you can pull from. So like some blades, maybe if you don't want to use them or don't want to level them, would you get away with having maybe never cooking?
Absolutely. There are so many blades you can get by like, you know, doing even a rudimentary amount of farming. You just end up with way more than you could ever possibly do all the work on. Mm-hmm. You know, and you end up, there's other ways to unlock those things as well. You can do these like timed side quest type missions called mercenary missions, where essentially you take your blades and you send them off on like a timer based mission, and they go do some kind of, you know, good deed or a quest off screen or whatever, and they come back in a certain amount of real time. And then after completing those missions, they will unlock nodes as well. Regardless of whatever the actual process to unlock that node is. So that's another way you can level those things.
Are the nodes linear, or are they more like
you have grid? You have to go in order, yeah. Okay. But you don't have to. So like you can't unlock level 3 before you unlock level 1 of a specific tree, but you could unlock 1 through 5 of one entire tree without touching any of the other ones on some of the other ones, right?
So it's like the Skyrim level ups, basically, or that type of advancing of a character.
Right. You know, it's like the thing looks like a fan almost on the screen, and there's little dots on the fan, and then the dots proceed upwards and outwards. You have to stay linearly going up, but there's nothing stopping you from going sideways and then going up, right? Typically, you're just going to end up filling all the nodes anyway, going up all directions at the same time. But there's nothing stopping you from saying, oh, I really like this one ability, I want to level it all the way up. except for those nodes being unlocked, like the next highest tier up, right?
Cool.
So anyway, that's all to say. I've been playing a lot of that game, and the story has gotten really crazy. And yeah, I'm still doing a lot of that.
Did they ever make that change to the map that you guys were so desperate for?
So they did make some changes. Oh, that's right. I was going to talk about the patches. They did make some really good changes to that game. Yes. So there's a fast travel button in that game where you click it and it would take you to the map to fast travel. And then you would have to drill down 5 times to figure out wherever you were. Now, when you hit that fast travel button, it immediately opens the map to the map that you're on wherever your character is.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yes.
So nice.
That is something that should have been there to start with.
Yeah.
And why did it take them so long? That was added in the first patch. The most recent patch they came out, they added a bunch of ways to skip repetitive dialogue that happens because of menus and stuff. So, for instance, when you deploy those mercenary missions I talked about, every blade that you send will have some kind of line of dialogue "Oh, thanks for sending me on this mission," kind of a thing, or "We'll do our best," or whatever. And that was unskippable. Right, it was unskippable before, and it was the same every time. So they finally added a way to just A-button through that dialogue and just silence them and send them on their way. And then when they would come back, they'd say, "Oh, I've gotten stronger," or whatever. And that was also unskippable, and you can skip that stuff now. Similarly, when you would use certain items that give your characters status bonuses, if the blade you were using had a particular affinity for that item, you'd get little bonus marks for that, and they would have a little line that they would say. And so as you're using these items over and over to try and build up their little affinity points, you would hear, "Oh, I love this item. Oh, I love this meat. Oh, I love this meat," and over and over and over, and you couldn't skip that either. And now you can button through it. So they're adding little quality of life stuff that is very nice. And apparently they're fixing various bugs and stuff too. I don't know about any of that stuff. I have not encountered any, thankfully.
Yeah, I read about they cut down on some of the battle dialogue. From
the infamous guy that says, "Don't forget me,"
yes, has
now been forgotten. There's this soldier enemy that you run into pretty frequently. I forget the exact name of that soldier, but one of his battle line, all the enemies have 2 or 3 dialogue lines that they'll kind of cycle through or whatever. And one of the lines he would say is, "Don't forget me." And I don't know why. It doesn't that doesn't really make a lot of sense in terms of him being a soldier type guy and trying to arrest you or whatever.
It might be one of those lost in translation moments that are rare nowadays, but still happen.
Yeah, very possible. So I'm not sure where that came from, but they did change that guy's line apparently in the most recent patch to, I think now he just says, "Don't forget." And then I think he tells you to behave. So I don't know.
Have you been behaving?
No, because then you slice him up with a sword real good. So I'm not real sure what he wants out of you there. Anyway, that game is still getting patched. Apparently there's DLC quests and stuff coming sooner or later. I don't know when any of that is supposed to happen, but I didn't buy the season pass, so it won't be coming for me.
Yeah, it just feels like you'd run into fatigue if you're 100 hours in and haven't even finished. You want to go back and do more DLC?
I don't feel the need to have more quests in this game. There are quite enough, thank you.
Oh, all right. Michael, are you also Xenoblading?
I haven't. It's on my list to jump back into it, full time, but I haven't gotten to it yet. What have I played? I went back and fired up some 3DS over the weekend and played through a little more of Super Mario 3D Land. Yeah, Land is the 3DS one.
3D Land. Oh, okay, yeah. It's a 3D world, but for 3DS.
For 3DS. Yeah, I never quite finished it. You unlock Luigi halfway. At the end of Mario's playthrough, you unlock Luigi, and then you can play through a whole new set of levels with him, and then go back and replay some of the old ones with him too, and it changes things a little bit.
Sweet. That's a throwback. But something else that I'm also doing, which is going back through the 3DS backlog. I can appreciate the desire to get through some of the older games on our lists.
Well, and I mean,
timeless games.
I was just going to say, nothing bad about going back to old games that were also amazing, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
The nice thing about the 3DS, especially compared to something like Xenoblade, is I can pop it open for 5 minutes and play through a level or two and then shut it again.
Yeah. Xenoblade kind of requires some investment for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Even despite being on the Switch, it's not like you can really just open that up and just play for 5 minutes and turn it off. You're not going to get anything done.
Yeah. I also have that nice experience right now where I can pop it open, do one latent puzzle, and then put it back down again. It's like, I'll get through this one puzzle at a time. That's fine.
Yep.
I'm liking that game. It's got some crazy story in it. It's very anime in a way. You're like, oh, cool, more mysteries. Not really solve anything in terms of the story here, but that's fine.
Yeah, they do that. They give you all of the mysteries, and then they solve them one by one after you've gotten all of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got to build up all the mystery.
So much mystery. It's like a weird Scooby-Doo thing going on where, it's like if there were no dog and it was just a man and his apprentice as Scooby-Doo, but the villains were still the same, like Scooby-Doo-ish villains. All the people in the town look like they're complete
Old
villains.
Man Withers.
Yeah, like, look, go back to Razione. He's the one with the weird lazy eye or something, like, I don't know. It's an odd thing. And you know what's even stranger to me is like the currency in the town is puzzles.
Yeah, that was a little strange in the first one.
It's like a weird pathology, like the entire town's upset. Yeah, there was a murder. Can you solve this puzzle for me?
Spoiler, that doesn't go away.
Wait, hold on. Like, your cat just ran away, and you want me to go get it and chase it for you. Why are you giving me a puzzle to do?
It's a really enlightened society where they have eschewed all forms of money, and they really have just decided to focus in on puzzles as the thing that determines your worth.
It's some sort of like mass hysteria, though. Like if I don't have the best puzzle, it's like a pre-Twitter era of trying to get likes, right?
They're just trying to understand, are you up to the task of saving his cat? If so, you should be able to solve this hopefully not very difficult puzzle.
Literally exactly how they say it in the games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can think video game logic.
Mm-hmm. How many times can you pour milk jugs into other milk jugs to make even amounts of milk in the milk jugs, JJ?
Until I get annoyed with that type of puzzle, I'm going to guess like twice.
Well, there are at least 6 people in town who think they have the milk jug puzzle to stump you. I'm
going to have to go back and watch Die Hard 3 and make sure I remember how to do them.
Exactly 4 gallons. Oh man. So it's nice though doing things on your 3DS because you can do multiple things at once. The puzzles aren't crazy hard. I actually went back and watched some old stuff, and along the way was flipping through HBO and ran across John Wick 2. Did anybody watch that movie?
I did not, and I heard that it was great.
I wanted to mention it because a lot of times I feel like I'm the naysayer, the negative Nancy, especially when it comes to sequels. They're never as good as the original, or remakes, or all that sort of stuff. And I like this as much, if not more, than the original John Wick movie.
John Wick was a pretty great movie, so that's high praise, I think, anyway.
Yeah. I'll just throw it out there. I want to see people's opinions since you guys haven't seen it. So if somebody has an opinion about John Wick 2 that isn't that it's a better movie than the original, where should they send it?
That place, I think, would be podcast@weweregamers.com, an email address that we read.
We do.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's just like, you guys can't speak the English language well, and then we ignore that.
Well, there might not be that wrong, but we're still not going to reply to that.
Me fail English? That's impossible.
Yeah. Other than John Wick 2, though, something else you can watch while you're playing your 3DS is the new Overwatch League, which we're now in the second week of it, and I wanted to bring it up because they had 300,000 concurrent viewers the first night.
That seems like a lot.
I mean, it does to me. I don't know what you would think about that. It's obviously tapered off since then, but that's not the amount that I would have expected. That was like brand new game, first world championship numbers.
Yeah, I mean, Overwatch is a big game. They made a really big deal of this thing. So I think, getting a big number out of it makes some sense. I will be interested to see if people stick with it, especially since kind of some of the stuff I had wondered if they were going to do, it seems like they did not do in terms of making the spectating easier to watch.
Like being able to spectate like the Dota style system
or just like, or something like having like cameras or something outside of the player characters, because it is really hard to watch a first-person view of the action because they're doing the stuff you need to do to win in first-person shooters, which can be like whipping the camera around very quickly or like peeking out from behind walls and like moving very erratically and stuff. It just makes it very difficult to view what's going on if you don't know, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the casters do a good job of trying to explain, oh, hey, look, here is so-and-so peeking out from behind the wall trying to do this thing or like getting this important kill. But like if I just tune in on Twitch, and it is on Twitch, finally, I think that was one of your complaints before, Andrew.
No, yeah, they heard my complaint and instantly changed it.
Yes, I think that is a good thing. But if I just like see the stream, right, and I have not like figured out what the context of the match is or whatever, I just see the camera flipping around and like a bunch of people shooting at each other, and it's very difficult to ascertain like what's going on. And maybe a lot of that is because I don't play a lot of Overwatch. I don't understand the situations immediately. Yeah. But as a person coming new into the situation, more or less, I don't think an outside observer would understand either.
Absolutely. And I think I would have a comparison for you. It's like if, let's say you were watching football, right? And the entire, 60 minutes or whatever it is, right, of a football game was like filmed from the quarterback's helmet.
Yeah.
Right, and so like 3/4 of the plays, all you see is the lineman, and then he turns and hands the ball off, and you see kind of maybe the handoff, and then the player runs by, and that's about all you get to see of the play, unless they're able to get to the other running back's helmet in time, or like the quarterback throws it and it goes over the line, and you maybe see it get to the player, but the quarterback got tackled, so he's on the ground, and the camera hasn't switched yet, and so it would be really hard to understand the development of a play in football with just having the cameras locked to players' helmets. So I think your idea is great to have some sort of like free cam mode with actual spectating, so you can see how teams are moving or whatever. There is the room to then say, okay, well, that was a really exciting play where the McCree sniped everybody during his high noon, so we got to go back to his camera and do
totally. And like, yeah, you absolutely need that stuff, because like, the time where the person, the Winston jumps in and makes the huge barrier that saves a bunch of people and then knocks the guy off the level or whatever, like those plays are really exciting to watch from the first person perspective also, and they need that. But in terms of the strategy of the game, which I think is something they should be trying to highlight, if they're not, I assume they're talking about it. I have not really sat down and watched a whole broadcast yet. But in terms of the strategy and stuff, it's difficult to see that stuff from a first person perspective, an overhead or like a mini map type perspective where you can kind of like, almost like draw out the plays or something, like you would get in the overhead camera in a football game, is very helpful, right? You can see the line shifting left and then the quarterback handing it and the guy sweeping out to the right or whatever. From an overhead perspective, that development of that play is clear. Whereas if you were in the first person perspective, right, the quarterback just falls over and that's the end of the play.
Yeah. I know they're trying real hard. Their marketing team is working overtime. They've distributed. It seems like they've distributed. I shouldn't say they did, but it seems like when they made these teams, they cooked them all up at Blizz headquarters, and they've got some sort of like Disney level control over how these teams are supposed to function, and so they it seems like they have these taglines just like cooked up ready for them to use on their Twitter accounts and stuff like that when they make a good play or they win a game or whatever. They have their like hashtag and all that.
And that kind of stuff is what you get when you have somewhat semi-professional sports type people running that stuff, because you see that from like real sports teams accounts and stuff too these days, where like the team will tweet at their opponents that night and be like, "Oh, you guys, look at this sweet dunk we did on your player," or whatever. I don't know. I can't come up with an example off the top of my head so quick, but like that's the kind of stuff that they will do, in terms of their, keeping their fans engaged or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, it seems like they have the whole thing together. I will be interested to see how it pans out in the longer term.
Yeah. We'll revisit, I think they do 4 parts to the first season, so I doubt unless one of us or both of us gets up to the arena, we'll talk about it much, but I would love to at the end of the season at least revisit how we think it turned out in terms of the coverage and whether it, looks like it's going to last or whatever.
Yeah, I think that'd be very interesting.
Well, speaking of my football analogy, did anybody watch the crazy football games this weekend?
I certainly did. How about you, Michael?
I caught a lot of highlights. I had a concert on Sunday night, so I didn't catch the late game. But I saw snippets of the early game and then highlights of the blowout. Man,
that early game is the one I actually watched beginning to end, and that was just surprising in several ways, I think. Andrew, did you watch any of that game?
I watched much of the beginning and not much of the end because I kind of felt like I knew what was coming.
Yeah, you were correct, of course. The sort of sense of dread kind of just laying over the field as all of a sudden the refs decided that the Patriots could do no wrong.
I knew it was over when ESPN Stats tweeted out that the Jags were 10-0 in games they had led by 10 at halftime.
I saw that too.
And I was like, well, that game's over. I don't need to come back after halftime. They've already jinxed it. And sure enough.
Yeah. Much will be said about the calls and lack of calls there in that game. But certainly I think it can be said that the Patriots have a powerful home field advantage. It was surprising to me, at least. I expected that game to be a lot less close than it was.
Well, look back 2 seasons. The Jaguars are not a team I would say would ever even be in the playoffs.
Absolutely. I think them getting this far is quite astounding. But, their defense played, amazing football all season. They really did earn it.
Again, leading by 10 at halftime, and they won 10 out of 11 of those.
Yeah. Yeah, their team is good.
So have a good defense. Yeah.
They've drafted. I think the statistic I saw was they've picked in the first 5 for the last 5 seasons, and now they will be picking 29th.
Oof.
But you're gonna get some talent with that many high pulls.
Right. So
wait, hold on. Is that actually true?
Supposedly, if the system works, you should be getting talent. But
it's true for some
not
teams.
Always true.
That's not true for other teams.
Doesn't mean you're not going to just trade it away.
0-16 Browns come to mind.
Yeah, or you're just going to draft people that are bad because you're obsessed with finding a quarterback.
I cannot believe they drafted Manziel. And that's this many years later.
4 years later, he still can't believe.
I cannot believe it.
Anyway.
Well, I think the real story coming out of that game is at least in my opinion, was the pretty one-sided refereeing.
It was 6-1. Actually, I remember seeing the recap of that. It was 6 penalties to 1.
And I can understand if the refs want to institute a let them play policy. I think, a lot of playoff games tend to be more exciting when you don't call the ticky-tack stuff every single play, right? Like they don't call holding every play even though you absolutely could.
It's got to be the big strategy from the beginning, though. Can't be the strategy at the end.
And they definitely did let them play quite a bit. But then they called a couple of like relatively ticky-tack pass interference calls that set up a touchdown for the Patriots right before halftime. And then you wonder, okay, well, like, are they gonna make that fair later and like call some stuff the other way? No, they weren't. And it just feels bad. There's a really big play, the fumble recovery, and then blowing that play dead when he probably should have been able to run it all the way back for the touchdown. That doesn't make sense. Like, why did they do that? If they ruled it his recovery, why did they just blow the play dead? Anyway, you feel bad because you don't want officiating to be the thing that stands out at the end, right? And the game was close and tense for a lot of the time, but like the officiating helped to make it that way, and that feels bad. Obviously the team I would have preferred did not win. So, you could say sour grapes or whatever, but I mean, it's the Patriots. I don't think there are that many people outside of the New England area that are looking to see them win again. Well,
they've kind of taken over for the Cowboys as the like poster boy football team, I think. There are a decent amount of expat Patriot fans. Anyway, people from the East Coast that are Patriots fans that are on the West Coast, so they'll get some viewership, but it's really, I mean, like, it's almost like a Freeway Series Super Bowl over there now.
It is, right? With the Eagles blowing the Vikings completely out of the water, that other game not being exciting to watch beyond the first quarter, really. You wonder, I think a lot of people are correct. Like, the Philadelphia, I don't think has been to a Super Bowl in quite a while. I'm not sure what the statistics on that are. Seemed like their fans are pretty happy they were going, so good for them, I guess. I know there are a lot of people that don't like the Eagles all that much either. So you kind of feel like the entire middle and western half of the United States is getting left out of this one.
Yeah, you'll get the people who will tune in because they want to see one team lose more than they want to see a team win.
Absolutely.
I think that they've hit a stasis number on the Super Bowl. There's people that just do the Super Bowl for the Super Bowl's sake, right? Like,
oh, totally. I'm not like saying in terms of the viewership. I'm saying in terms of like the fandoms.
Oh, yeah.
Like, like I would have been more interested in watching this Super Bowl if the Vikings were in it, right?
I would, yeah, absolutely. I'd be more interested in the Super Bowl if it was like Vikings Jags. That would be a very interesting.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to see.
That was the dream out of those four. Although I will say, that Saints Vikings game was amazing to watch.
Sure. If you're going back that far in the playoffs to pick teams.
Right. Yeah. Right. But with these four, this is what we had. I think the two least exciting teams, but maybe the two better ones won out. So, I want the game to be exciting, whatever the Super Bowl is. So hopefully we can get that. It's our football update there.
Fantasy football's over, and I've kind of like been very happy to let it lie. The playoffs overall didn't interest me that much, so it was nice to have a weekend where I started to care a little bit about football again. I really was down in a dour place at the end of fantasy football season from just the season not being great, from personal non-enjoyment, etc. So it was nice. It was a little bit refreshing with that good game, and then not so refreshing with the other one. But
I mean, there were some great plays in that game. They were all in the first half, though. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can we talk about like an upcoming game for a second?
Yes.
Sure.
We can get back on the game track because this is supposed to be about video games.
In theory.
games. You know, I think a lot of people...
Look, man, the podcast is about whatever we want.
That's
and
true.
We can want it to be about video games now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, gotcha. Well, I mean, it was natural because I managed to... Anyway. Anime. You guys.
Anime?
Okay.
Do you watch anime anymore? Nobody watches anime anymore, right?
I have watched it in the not too distant past.
Netflix anime. I think that's like the level of the anime-ness that people get nowadays.
Yeah.
It's not a big... Dragon Ball is still a thing,
there are
though?
there are certainly a lot of people who still watch that stuff, though.
I'm sure. No, I'm not talking about... I'm sure it's very popular still, right? But my days of Toonami have ended.
Well, Toonami itself, I believe, has ended, so I think you're
Rip.
you're not alone there.
Right.
But I mean, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z are still very popular. I mean, as far as I know, there is still an ongoing Dragon Ball anime. Dragon Ball Super is airing new episodes still to this day. So, you know, it's as popular as it has been in years, I assume, at this point.
Yeah. So this is like the video game / news section of it. I'm going to read you a headline here from US Gamer, which is like Eurogamer, but in the United States. Dragon Ball Fighters with a Z, and it's capitalized. Review roundup. Bandai Namco might be krilling it.
I want to turn this podcast off. That pun, while both great, is also the worst pun.
Dude, hold on. It's better. US Gamer really gets going. The first line. This much anticipated Dragon Ball fighting game isn't a hard sell, CELL, for fans of the franchise. I am a fan of Dragon Ball, and I know that you are also a fan of Dragon Ball. Michael, are you a fan of Dragon Ball?
I watched both the original and all of Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid, so yes, I am definitely a fan.
I've read a lot of reviews of this game. Are we going to be playing Dragon Ball and a fighting game?
I don't know that I am going to be playing it, unless I hear that the single-player mode is somewhat robust. But it sounds like there are going to be a lot of people that are playing it. Because just from watching some videos and stuff, this game looks like really good. It looks like they animated the show. Like it's really impressively looking. The characters look like they do on the show. They have the same moves, and a lot of the newer characters from the new series are there also, as well as ye old favorites. And apparently they're like balanced against each other somehow. So like guys like Yamcha have a chance against Goku and all the Super Saiyans and stuff.
Nice. So,
it seems like it's going to be really cool. It's a 3-on-3 fighting game, so you have the character currently on screen and then 2 off-screen characters that you can tag in and use to assist and stuff. Kind of in like a Marvel versus Capcom style, for people who know a little bit about fighting games. And it looks really, really good. Like just really, really good animation. And I hope that the balance is good. I haven't played it. And the game is just coming out as of this week, I think.
Now, I've been a fan of few fighting games, and they generally are silly or they're anime. So like Dive Kick, or a better example of a real fighting game like the Gundam Battle Assault series.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This looks to me like Gundam Battle Assault like style, where they brought in the art direction of an actual show, and then they said like, but also make the Street Fighter 2 but better.
Yeah, it seems like they really tried very hard to make it so that each character plays uniquely somehow, right? Even though, Goku and Vegeta are both Super Saiyans, they don't play the same way. And you have young Gohan and older Gohan, and even though a lot of these people are ostensibly the same character or different in lore, power levels, or whatever. It seems like they have done the work to make those characters play differently and uniquely, have some kind of role in the game, and be, balanced at least at some level. As, well, maybe this guy can't actually beat that guy one-on-one, but he has a really powerful assist, and so then he's better as like a second character on your team or whatever.
Does anybody have their finger on the pulse of Evo on this podcast?
Oh, I'm sure this game will be there. It's made by Arc System Works, which are the people who make other fine fighting games like Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue. So
then it'll definitely be there, yeah.
Those games have shown up at Evo in the past, so there's no reason to assume this would not also.
Got it. Well, I have another piece of news stuff that I want to hear a reaction about.
All right.
Okay, go for it.
Does anybody like Total War or Warhammer?
I really want to like those games, but I have not ever had the time to play them.
Well, JJ, I assume, Michael, you're not in the know on Warhammer too much.
I am not. It is not in my wheelhouse.
Okay. Total War series is like a top-down strategy style game where you have an overarching world map and you kind of like take over kingdoms. And then when you fight another opposing army, you go into like a battle sequence where you have another top-down control of an army, and you kind of like send units across the battlefield, and very like medieval style combat system where you have big units of like spearmen and archers and catapults and stuff. And then the Warhammer is like a skin on top of that from the Games Workshop series. JJ and I have been pining after the first one, and I just found out, JJ, they've released the second one, and they're already patching it with its first expansion.
Yeah, the second game came out pretty quickly. I don't know what was different about it.
It sounds like they wanted to do different races, and they didn't really know how to fit it in there. And the first expansion's giving me Bretonnian knights with Tomb Kings.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see. I wonder if that means if you want some of like certain races, the only way to get them is to play the first game, and then the second game is just all the other stuff that they wanted to do in the Warhammer mythos.
Yeah, so it sounds like you kind of like pick what races you want, and then you play either of the two games. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to do a sequel, that's for sure.
Sure, but it's kind of like not sucky in a way. If you
it doesn't invalidate the desire to play the first game still.
Sure.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
But you liked Bretonnia, right? Wasn't that your jam back in ye Warhammer Fantasy days?
I didn't play Warhammer Fantasy very long, but I did really, really enjoy painting the knights, and that was their thing. Is Bretonnia is like a, Arthurian legend characters, so all their heraldry and stuff all over their characters, and so it was a really fun army to look at, and so I kind of picked that for that reason. Plus, everybody had horses, and that was pretty cool. You know what I did do, and I mentioned it on the podcast a while ago. This is kind of like the time of year previous to this, the end of a year is when people kind of, I feel like, maybe this isn't true, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but like, I always get hit with a wave of nostalgia at Christmas time, and it's even worse now that I have kids. It kind of brings out like all the things you used to enjoy, and there was like a heavy bit of news last year about Warhammer 40K because they just hit their 8th edition, and I know I mentioned it on here because I was like, I asked if it was wrong to be curious about it, and I was curious, so I actually went out and bought an 8th edition Warhammer 40K rulebook, JJ.
Oh, Andrew, why?
Well, I mean, they come in these box sets now, so you find them on eBay, people giving them up for like $10 or $20 just because they have 5 of them because they got them in the box sets that they needed the models from. Oh,
yeah, sure. Okay.
So I didn't like run out to a Games Workshop because I don't even think there's one near us anymore.
Okay, that makes me feel better then.
Yeah, so I had somebody ship one to me, and I don't want to get too deep into it because probably Michael will get bored. But they changed.
It's not the most exciting if you're not into it, for sure.
They changed a frack ton of rules. I think you can say frack.
I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's true. They changed a lot of rules, but the one that you're going to be most shocked about, I think, is the morale rule. So do you remember like leadership tests and all that?
Oh, yeah.
And like getting pinned and all these different things that your units had to worry about their leadership. Well, at the end of every combat, you used to have to take a morale test or fall back, right?
Right.
Now your morale test just kills units.
So if you fail the morale test, your guys just die?
However many you failed it by over your morale, over your leadership, is how many models you lose from your unit.
Good Lord.
It's just like, oh my. Okay, so the game is a instant meat grinder just from that rule alone.
Yeah, that really I guess it discourages you from charging with low morale units, but
yeah.
I feel like you were already discouraged from doing that in a lot of ways anyhow.
Sure.
So like I guess the argument they're going to make is, oh, it speeds things up. You don't have to chase down the stragglers or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
But also, like, man, wow.
Well, they tried that other rule when we were still playing. The last edition we played was the morale rule was if you fell back from a combat and then were overtaken while falling back from a combat, it just killed the whole unit.
Yeah, you would kill the whole unit.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I guess this is a way because people were escaping that too much and the games were still too long. But I kind of always had the feeling like there was that tense moment of like, will my unit make it off the board? Because sometimes you were playing a campaign and you really needed them to live.
Yeah, you want to save them. Yeah.
I don't know if I've gotten bit, but I got bit enough to read the whole rule book. So I don't think I have anyone to play 40K with, so that would probably keep me out of getting back into it. But
yeah, that's the kind of thing where you need not only a bunch of space, but it has a lot of small parts, and that doesn't seem ideal for people with small children.
Oh, yeah, good point. Okay, well, there's a really great argument to hold me back. Thank you for that.
I didn't mean to be a buzzkill.
No, man. That's keeping me on the straight and narrow. I appreciate it.
Responsibilities. We have them.
We all have them. That's why we were gamers. We can read rule books and be nostalgic, and then realize we barely have enough time to get through Xenoblade 2, so why would you go painting models?
Painting models could be fun. That would be the part of the hobby I think I would be more interested in getting back into.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I was just about to say, like, I said the wrong thing because that's the most fun part of it, actually, is sitting down and, like, clipping them out and gluing them together and then sitting there with a paintbrush for hours on end while you have a TV in the background.
Yeah, very relaxing.
I know that 0 of the people on this podcast have time for that currently, though.
Also correct.
That is accurate.
All right. If people want to tell me all the cool stuff about 40K that we missed, or if they want to enlighten JJ and Michael and me about how to play Dragon Ball Fighters or anything else, get at us at podcast@weweregamers.com, or where else can they find us, JJ?
You can find us on Facebook at We Were Gamers. That is also our Twitter account at We Were Gamers. We're on Instagram as well. You can follow us on all those places at We Were Gamers, and we will have our show stuff out there for the folks to see. WeWereGamers.com is the website. You can follow us iTunes, Google Play, wherever fine podcasts are distributed. And
leave ratings. Ratings are good.
Yeah, leave ratings. Keep up to date with the show.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael, for joining us again tonight and in the foreseeable future as well. I think what we should do next week or next time you're available with us, we should do like a Michael primer. I think that people got like 90 or 89 episodes of Andrew and JJ primer, and then now they need like a catch-up Michael primer.
We can do that.
All right. Sweet. All right. Well, we'll be back with another episode next week, and talk to y'all soon.